in South America, about the size of the state of Colorado. But it also has the highest population density of all the countries in South America. It's a country of huge contrasts. I lived there for a year, so it's one of the places that I know really well. This map's not great on the slide, but here's the Pacific Ocean. Here are the western lowlands, and then go up much more gradually on this side, and you have the whole chain of the Andes. There are 12 volcanoes that march from north to south, starting in the area of Quito and down. The highest of which is Chimborazo, which is 20,800 feet in elevation. And then finally, you drop, if you go down the east slope, you drop rather quickly. It's much steeper, and you get to what's called the Amazon Basin, or in Ecuador it's called the Oriente. Okay, so these are the places that we visited. It's our itinerary. I've highlighted the lowland rainforest lodges that we stayed at. We started September 30th, and we came back to the U.S. on November 5th. So we had a goodly amount of time in each of the places. The first is La Selva Jungle Lodge. La Selva means jungle. Next comes Sacha. I don't know what Sacha means, or at least I can't remember. Cabañas Aliñawi. Cabañas means cabins. And notice that's an upper lowland rainforest. And then later on, Kapawi Eco Lodge, which is again in lowland rainforest, but in a different area. So you can see it on the map. Here's Quito, right? I've zoomed in on the map of Ecuador. From Quito, we flew to Coca. Coca is a small town in the Oriente. From Coca, we took a boat down the Napo River. The Napo is this river that starts up in the Andes here and goes all the way out this way and crosses over the border into Peru, where it meets the Amazon River. It's a tributary. The first lodge we stayed at is La Selva. It's right here. Back upriver by boat to Sacha Lodge. From Sacha, back upriver to Coca, where we took a bus for about 5 hours. Right? Remember, Bob was with us this whole time. The road kind of goes like this and then down to a town called Tena. This is upper lowland rainforest. And from Tena, it's only about a half-hour, 45-minute drive to the lodge, which is still on the Napo River, but upper, right? Then, to get back to Quito, bus. This is the road, right? Another 5 or 6 hours. Later, to get to Capawi, which is down here, and this is the border with Peru. Notice it's a kind of straight line. Nobody knows for sure where the border is, because this is pristine rainforest, and they've been arguing about it for years. So Peru has gained more than Ecuador in the arguments. But anyway, to get there from Quito, you drive all the way down here, across here, to a little town called Shell. Yes, the company that does oil. It's one of the big companies in this part of Ecuador where oil is big. Here we found a small plane and flew following the Pastaza River, also a tributary of the Amazon, to Capawi Eco Lodge, almost at the border. Okay? And if you have questions, go ahead. Quito is the capital. This is the center. The elevation of Quito is 9,200 feet. This is the old town, the foreground, and this is the cathedral. Old Town is a World Heritage Site. It's been restored and it's really a beautiful place. I lived in a building somewhere over in this part of town. Can't find it exactly, but it's over there. It's the highest capital in South America, or the second highest capital in South America. The highest, can anybody guess what it is? The highest capital city in South America?
Bolivia?
Yeah, it's La Paz. Know what the elevation is?
18,000 plus.
18,000?
Well, it's about 11,000.
No,
isn't it?
it's 11,000.
What was that?
18,000 would be pretty cold. Snow covered all year round. 11,000, which is really high and very dry and very difficult to live in. The climate here is like eternal spring. It's in between two cordilleras of the Andes. You can see one of them over here. That, by the way, is Chimborazo, which is a couple 100 miles south of Quito, but this picture is taken from Quito. So that's a big, it's 10,000 feet higher, over 10,000 feet higher than Quito. In Quito, you can do one kind of fun thing, is take a teleférico, which is a cable car, up 3,000 feet to a fabulous viewpoint above tree line. So all you see is this grassy kind of stuff, which is called páramo. That's a common technical term for this kind of habitat. Let's see, the equator runs just north of Quito. This is the monument, which was supposed to be on the real line of the equator, but the French guys back in the 19th century who were measuring all these things got it a little wrong. Actually, the Incas had it more accurately, and we now know that it's a little bit north of where this monument is. But you just forget all that and you go, and you put one foot in the southern hemisphere and one foot in the northern hemisphere, and it's kind of fun anyway, right? Here's some more Páramo and Quito down below. Here's the volcano that is just above Quito, which is called Pichincha, which has erupted fairly recently. Yes?
Okay, never mind. You answered my question.
I did? Oh, okay, yeah. All of the volcanoes, almost all those 12 volcanoes that I mentioned have recently erupted at one time or another, even since 2000.
Tell them the elevation we were at this point.
This is 12,000.
Yeah, I didn't know, did you tell them?
Yeah, oh, well, I said that, but, you know. And this represents a very famous collection of butterflies that is owned by a Jesuit priest who lives in Quito, and we spent a bit of time with him photographing specimens. So,
We were supposed to tell them that that was a rainbow with the moon at the
oh, well, it kind of is.
I was going to say, it looks like a piece of artwork there. So.
Yeah, they've used a lot of specimens for a whole bunch of different things. Yeah, so, okay.
Well, in Brazil, a few years ago at Rio Cristalina Lodge, Rich Hoyer, a bird guide who was volunteering there, told us that he had heard about a way of attracting skippers in the jungle. He advised us, however, army ants worked only when they were in the area. He said, if you notice a skipper, just take a piece of tissue and make a spit wad out of it and place it on a leaf. And I'm going to have Colin demonstrate that now.
Did you show him how? Okay.
Yeah. You got to put spit on it
You have to make it spit.
and put it over on a leaf.
No, you use lots of spit. You gotta get it right.
Good at that.
Preferably
Not yet.
a leaf that's a little more flat, but you can't always find them. They'll land on them. But anyway, thank you, Colin. You see, army ants on the move stir up all kinds of other insects, which attract certain birds, which follow the ants. In turn, the birds poop. And these white droppings, which spit wads resemble, stand out brightly in the shadows of the rainforest. In their turn, forest skippers follow the birds, landing on the fresh droppings to suck minerals out of it before it dries out.
That's the real thing.
That's the real thing. Anyway, we didn't think too much of this idea because crossing paths with army ants doesn't happen very often in the rainforest. It's not a common occurrence. We tried it a few times but quickly lost interest. From Rio Cristalina, we traveled to a place called Rancho Grande in western Brazil, well known by lepidopterists. My target has always been skippers, so we walked the trails for a couple of days looking for them. It began to get intensely boring because we couldn't find more than a few common skippers here and there. Out of frustration, Shirley, thinking out of the box as she often does, remembered the spit wad idea. Now, I was a bit skeptical about the possibility of success, so Shirley volunteered to set out the spit wads with saliva, which, as you know, contains some sodium, which is what the skippers like. Hoping that she and I would not be bored anymore. After all, we had nothing to lose. The first thing we learned is that one person doesn't have enough spit to keep moistening one piece of tissue after another. Things dry out very fast and you have to go back and re-spit all the time. So, the second thing we learned is that you don't need any ant swarms to attract rainforest skippers with tissue. The third thing we learned is that there are a lot of skippers wandering around the forest looking for fresh bird droppings anywhere they can find it. Just imagine if a skipper could think what it looks like when a trail is lined with white spots that look just like bird droppings, a gold mine. It was that very evening, after Shirley kept complaining about running out of spit, that I, in a flash of genius, which I often have, I invented the salt solution in the spray bottle technique. It worked better than spit beyond our wildest dreams. The skippers started showing up and we haven't been bored since then.
It's a little one.
A little one. Well, actually, it would be, that's fine. You would be taking a new piece of tissue, but that's all right. That's right. So, you see, you can get someone this age to do all of this for you. Now, I started with the little bottle and I wound up using the bigger bottle because I could stand further away. And I also found this useful when giving these lectures, that if somebody was sleeping in the front row, I could just quite a distance. Anyway.
Richard, you show how you spray it from, spray it from
Let's see what a good shot you are from 10 feet.
Wow.
It doesn't hurt to get
It
the
doesn't take a lot.
stuff. You know, I'm very generous with my spit.
And it's okay if it just lands on the leaf too, because
Right.
once they find this, the spit water, or the salt water, they find it on the leaf too.
Would urine work as well?
It's a different, urine works, but not as well for rainforests.
You're in big trouble if you... So, later, when we got back from this trip, I got a hold of an article from the Journal of Lepidopterist Society, a 1993 article, describing this very idea of spit wads. And there's maybe a few articles left back there that you're welcome to take. A fellow by the name of Dave Ehrenholz was the first to try using this method. And they did this down in Peru, and they had success with a lot of special jungle skippers. I'd heard recently that Andy Warren and George, the late George Austin, were spitting on spit wads down in Peru, doing some collecting, and I was told that Andy noticed that George's spit worked better than his. And so someday if you're down in the jungles, you want to try this out, by all means, but the salt in the water works very well. Now with the Lindstrom technique, we have not only proven that it works effectively, we have just taken it to new levels. We've learned that the tissue dries out just like bird poop would, but it holds the moisture longer, and we can respray the tissue over and over for days. We've stayed in one location for as long as a week, reworking different sections of the trails that have been baited. And here is where this happens to be Cabañas al Ñawi, the road leading into the lodge, where Bob and I are placing spit wads along both sides. We covered about a half a kilometer with these spit wads about every 20 feet or so, depending on the vegetation. And
Whoa.
Wow.
you want to take your binoculars and your camera with you. And this is not a skipper sitting there.
It's coming back as soon as we figure ourselves.
That's right. I forgot to mention that it doesn't take very long before they find these white spots. And sometime I'm going to, I shouldn't say this, you're sworn to secrecy, but I'm going to lay out about a 30-foot length of toilet paper, because toilet paper works also, and just to see if that has any effect on whether they
Did it
land or
work?
not.
Did it work? Did you get 30 feet of butterflies?
We might.
No, but I haven't tried that yet. But
Oh,
that's, anyway,
But you,
oh, there's Shirley. Shirley is taking, oh, I see there's a spit wad there. She's taking a picture actually
big
of
one.
a
That was just to
chrysalis.
mark the Christmas.
Our own chrysalis, only chrysalis we found. It's of a owl butterfly. And she's also taking a picture of a skipper there. Sometimes we put the spit wads on the ground and it works fine too. They're looking all over for these white spots. Now, it does sort of look to you, I'm sure, that I'm about to pour the salt water on this particular skipper, but I'm actually back a ways. But I did this a number of times where I would go up to the spit wad and the skipper would stay there and I would just refresh the salt water on a piece of Kleenex. And most of the time they wouldn't fly off. And we've noticed if they do fly off, they'll often just come right back. And of course, because these skippers are looking for something white, this particular fire tip landed on a place that had a little paint smear or something. But we put some Kleenex down on the sidewalk not too far from it, and lo and behold, it flew over there and got some sodium.
And we took pictures.
And we took pictures. Oh yes, even in the rain there can be a lot in the tropics, as you know, and most of the tissue wads stick very well and stay on the leaf, so we rarely have to replace the tissue. Even if it falls on the ground, the skippers will find it. It's best, though, to place the tissue on a leaf that's of a certain size that won't droop and about waist level for photography access. In other words, find a leaf, if you can, that's kind of horizontal and place it there. There can be 3 or 4 different species of skippers on one piece of tissue. Here's 4 examples. This happens to be a satyr down here with a couple of skippers. That's the most we've seen on one
What is that?
spit wad.
Skipper.
That big one?
Yes.
Really?
And here's another
It's a close.
satyr over here.
It's like a big one. Except for the...
Well, they're so absorbed in these minerals that we can often approach them as close as 5 inches for very close macro shots. And as I showed you with the bottle also, we've observed that certain habitats and trails work better than others. If the trail is too narrow and overgrown, the skippers only come occasionally. We've learned that we have to share some of the salty wads with ants and occasionally termites. This happens quite a
Oh my
bit.
gosh.
And fortunately,
They're termites.
there's enough spit wads. The termites, for some reason, will create a tunnel. They tunneled this from
So who knows
someplace
where?
and then came out and took the stuff off the spit wad. And anyway, there seems to be enough spit wads for everybody. Yeah, if you want to study ants, this is a good way to do it. I found a bird egg sitting on a log, and I just for the fun of it put some spray on that, and sure enough, the next day there were ants all over it. Also, and I think you could, in the vicinity of, say, some ants, you could spray it out here too, and then not just out there and partake. But the butterflies and ants seem to get along. obviously there wouldn't be a skipper that would land on a situation
No,
with
it's
that
not.
I
many.
wouldn't be a stupid
Yeah.
skipper to land on
But
the
it's amazing the variety of ants that you get this way. Above a certain elevation, in the cloud forest, for example, the skippers don't seem to be aware of bird rapping. Above even higher elevations, there aren't as many skippers anyway, so the technique doesn't seem to be very effective. Simulating bird droppings probably wouldn't work well in Mexico. Areas are too open and not really jungly or too dry. It's amazing how little real jungle there is in Mexico, as I'm sure many of you know. If no skippers show up on a tissue in the forest, it means there are none in the area. As far as we know, the scientific community hasn't found anything harmful in this procedure. And I'm sure they know that we've been doing this, some of them. As far as littering is concerned, when we are finished with our skipper hunting, we can either collect this stuff back, take it off the leaves, or leave it.
And the ants will take care of it.
That's right, Bob.
That's what he's about to say.
In the rainforest, everything gets used or falls to pieces and disappears. Often ants begin the process soon after we set off the tissue, as Bob said. There's Bob and I in a debriefing session at the end of the day, making a list of as many skippers as we could from our cameras. Next. On this trip, I identified 200 skippers. And about 50 more remain unidentified, a lot of plain brown jobs that don't have many spots on them. I hope to be able to identify some more of those as I get more information, but this is a pretty high number of skippers for any butterfly tour. Now, come along with us to visit 4 popular destinations, Ecuador's Amazon basin, and see some of the results of our efforts. I want to mention here that it did say Ecuador and Peru, but we felt we had enough to show you for just the one country, so it's just going to be about Ecuador tonight. We will not make many comments so that you can see more of the skippers tonight. We've got quite a few slides to show you. Try to notice the variety of apiculus, the antenna tip shapes. You noticed on the skipper that Dave showed that there's just a tiny curve at the end of a rather large blob at the end of the antenna. But you'll see that the antennas, the apiculus on these species, for the most part, are much more pronounced. Some are even like a golf putter stick. And you'll also notice that the bodies are heavier than true butterflies, and you will see a lot of hairy-like scales. And the eyes look quite large and bulgy. And you may even spot a few skippers that have horn-like projections on their face called pelts. Some stick out quite a ways.
Okay, also, before we start the skippers, notice things like what the proboscis is doing. It's always kind of fascinating to see how they're sloping things up. Also, Richard reminded me of something, that skippers have spurs on their legs. So look for those too. There are a lot of characteristics of skippers, especially in the jungle, the bigger ones, that you can see why they're a separate family from true butterflies. They're somewhere between moths and true butterflies. And these are the characteristics that make them so.
And it's hard to believe that the proboscis is 2 straws. And imagine how small it is for the butterfly to slurp that up. It's hard to believe. Go ahead, Shirley.
Our first stop, La Selva, meaning the jungle lodge, on the Napo River. This is the dock on the left. This is not the Napo River. It's a lake that the lodge is located on. And this is our, on the right is our cabin. This is the most rustic of the 4 lodges that we stayed at. Kind of primitive, very simple rooms, although we had cold showers and toilets in the room and so on. Number 1 is all the cabins in the group. Down lower left, again debriefing with our guide Rodrigo, who wanted to learn as much as he could about butterflies. And a typical boardwalk trail in the rainforest. This is through an area that at some times of the year can be flooded. When it's the rainy, rainforest has 2 seasons, rainy and rainy, rainy. Right? So this is when it's rainy, rainy, and it can flood considerably. The rivers rise 15 to 20 feet during the rainy, rainy season. And this is, again, typical trails, the boardwalk on the right, and then higher elevation land where it rarely floods, it just gets muddy. That's typical. Okay, so are you
What's the
ready?
temperature there when you were there?
During the day, hot and humid. That's the best I can tell you. And it cool
But it
off.
wasn't overbearing.
No. And
Never
at
was
night
too
it
hot.
cools off. Sometimes you even need a light blanket.
Maybe the weather's so hot you don't need a blanket to keep warm.
Well, at night sometimes it cools off enough that you do. But during the day,
Maybe in the equator it feels so hot you only want to dress the way you would during a hot summer day.
oh, in the jungle you want to dress with long sleeves and long pants, and no matter what.
Keep the mosquitoes.
Not only mosquitoes, but everything
You
else.
go through a lot of bug spray.
You want to keep the bugs off.
Maybe I wouldn't want to wear a winter jacket in that weather.
No.
No.
Okay.
Yes. Incidentally, skippers, especially males, are also found mudding along the riverbanks, sitting on feces, urine, as Stuart mentioned, or wet sand or soil. And they do nectar to a certain extent, so they're found on flowers at the lodge gardens or along roadsides. And they will land on sweaty backpacks and clothing. And if you wore that coat in the jungle, that would be full of sweat, and there'd be a lot of butterflies in that coat.
So would there be a lot of butterflies on my jacket?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Like would sweat like attract them?
Well, if it had sweat on it, it would, yeah.
Oh.
We found quite a few skippers on the fences, on the screens rather, in the dining rooms and the bar and the various areas. It was very good. If you ever go down there, which I hope you will, do check these regularly, because during the day various butterflies come in and you can find a lot of skippers that way.
Especially the bar.
What is that thing?
It's a skipper, Colin.
But it's eyes.
Yeah.
That's, you're
they're-
noticing the eyes.
They're called ruby eyes. You're probably familiar with the green-backed ruby eye, which is found in Mexico, which you'll see pictures of. But now you don't want to,
It's like a normal eye.
I was just going to say, notice the proboscis. And you can see some spurs here.
That looks like a human eyeball.
Lots of hair like
Anyway, there's several genuses of ruby eyes in South America. Penguins are known for their long forewings. This is the same, not the same bug necessarily, but we've noticed that, as I said before, butterfly comes in spitwad, it might fly off for a short distance, maybe 5 or 6 feet, and it will then return.
So sometimes
good one.
we'll wait. If it flies off to a reef somewhere, and we've seen it, and that's usually the only reason they fly away, is that they've perceived that we're there. It will come back to the spitwad for the salt water. Almost predictable.
Are these all skippers?
Yes, everything.
Uh,
You haven't seen everything.
There's a number of skippers that patrol up and down the pathways, and often will land underside of the leaves, along with metal marks and other species. Here is the famous greenback rubii. I've never seen its greenback, but again you notice the spurs and the bright red eye.
A spread wheel.
This is a special skipper. There's only one species in this genus. It's often confused with a moth. And you notice how slightly curved the antennas are. There's not much of a club, and there are a number of species of skippers that are like this. Boas are very hard to identify. Don't ask me why, they're just tough. And,
They all look alike.
pardon me?
They all look alike.
Quite a few.
Very similar.
There's two genuses that are called false flashers. You'll see some flashers in a moment, but they sort of resemble flashers, the Stroptes genus. And then in the group of spreadwings, the equivalent of the ruby eyes from the grass skippers, these are called scarlet eyes. I think maybe Jeffrey Glassberg came up with that name, which is not a bad name. There's quite a few genuses that represent scarlet eyes.
Okay, and with this Oleus candidus, we say farewell to La Santa. And we take a boat back upriver, about an hour or so, on the Napo River, which is this. This is an island. You can see the south bank of the river way over there. So you can imagine how much wider the Napo can get as it goes downstream toward the Amazon. Like there are many islands. This is the kind of boat that is the transportation for getting to and from lodges. Two people can sit across and they go up and down the river. Happens to be foggy because it's early morning in that.
I wanted to mention before we go to the menu at Sacha Lodge that many of these ruby eyes are early risers, and you can see them at 6:30 in the morning, and you can see them quite late in the afternoon also. Anyway, I just had to say that.
This is the most upscale lodge that you can visit in the Amazon basin.
Yes, this is the lodge that Bob Hardwick
Sacha.
liked the best.
It was luxury.
I recall when we were there a number of years ago that the menu was even longer than this, but this is only for lunch. So,
4
needless to
desserts.
say, I couldn't figure out when we arrived why all the guests were lying down side by side on the dock. But then discovered later that they just lined up the rubber boots that they let you wear in the jungle.
The trails get very muddy, and they really are important to the river boots. So,
How many people stay there? Oh,
gosh, if it were full,
Very so. Extremely so.
yeah, but if it were full, there could be, what, 100 people there?
Maybe 100 people.
At this particular lodge, yeah. In order to get to the lodge, you take this in tubes. You do the boat ride, then you walk for about 20 minutes, get in another canoe, and take down this canal and across a lake. Anyway, this place is famous for its canopy towers, two 140-foot metal towers, between which are suspended, or is suspended, this walkway. And it's great for seeing mammals, various monkeys, watching birds early in the morning, and this is the kind of view. You're up above the forest. Really, it's good. And our cabins, Bob's, Richard and Shirley's. Everything here is raised because it's on the edge of a lake, but it floods during the rainy season. Typical of lots of trails in the higher ground is roots from trees. You have to be really careful not to fall over them. Richard, any comments here?
No.
All right. Bob and I went, this is the lake. We took the canoe over to the other side of the Napo, the south bank of the Napo, and we looked for butterflies. And the river is so wide that the mammals and the butterflies and birds and everything can be completely different on the south bank of the Napo. So you can imagine it's even more like that along the Amazon, which is an even mightier river than the Napo. And this is just a curious little kid.
Bob?
It was on the boat.
Bob spent a fair amount of time taking pictures of true butterflies, but he was very helpful in setting out our bait traps and also taking pictures of skippers.
And there we are. The first butterfly on the screen.
It was amazing the number of skippers that we found inside the screen there. There it is. These are called false silver drops. There's a genus called Hesperiidae, and I'm glad John Pelham isn't here tonight because we'd probably correct my pronunciation of a Latin name, but maybe that's why he didn't come tonight, because he was told that he couldn't correct me. Another ruby eye, different genus. I've noticed these are both the same species, but the white scales have rubbed off in those spots. You can see them right up there. Not very many small grass skippers in the jungle. This is probably the trailside skipper that's found in Mexico. A few veined skippers, you'll see a few pictures of those, but not very many of the rather small grass skippers.
Richard, is that because there really isn't much grass there? That's all there are to leaves?
Well, I think they're normally in a different habitat as opposed to deep in the jungle. These are really jungle skippers, I think, that you normally find there and not very many other places.
But there are grasses in the jungle too.
Yes.
So what's their food plan? Most of these, the ones that we've been seeing in the jungle.
I can't
We
tell
don't
you
know. I
anything.
don't know what they're. These are called flats, this particular genus. You've probably seen, if you've been in Mexico, you've seen a couple of flats.
Back to the food plant, I think there are a lot of these skippers that you're going to see tonight. They're not even sure what the host plant is. So, okay, the flat. Notice you can see the antenna tips.
Yeah. There are about five or six different shaped apiculus. This is a special butterfly for us because I had sent this to Olaf Milke, who's the curator of a fantastic skipper collection in Curitiba, Brazil. He has over 100,000 specimens of skippers, and he said this was quite a rare skipper. I had not seen this before in the wild, and we did have one better picture of this at another place, but
Just pick the one.
right. I usually refer to these as jewel skippers. There's about 3 genuses that have a lot of spots and clump. Another scarlet eye of another genus.
I would check these window screens at least 3 times a day.
Yeah,
There's always something new there.
Another Panaquina, sitting rather high on its legs. That's a little unusual. And here's the first Astraptes, called flashers. Look at how bent the apiculus is. Another ruby eye genus. This particular genus all have white tipped antennas.
And a tiny little fin.
Lagunas are a group of about 15 species that are, many of them are difficult to identify because they all have a white stripe on the hind wing. There's a few common ones that you find in Mexico, but and this is one because of the unusual shaped white that we could identify. Another white-tipped Hesperiidae.
Okay. And I believe that this particular lodge was the slowest butterfly of all. I think it was drier at this lodge, and therefore we saw fewer butterflies of any kind, but,
I think so.
and more ants.
But the food was good.
So,
And you see, because the food was so great, Bob was really happy in that picture. He's not waiting to buy because we're not on the bus yet, but anyway, I wanted, what else I was going to mention?
we took the bus from Coca to Tena.
That's a story all in
Yeah,
itself, isn't
yeah,
it?
right. It's about 5 hours, and we met lots of fun people on the bus. And arrived at, remember what I said, we would be at a place that's on the upper Napo River. Okay? And this is pronounced Cabañas Aliñawi, or Butterfly Lodge.
Now, I thought that the lower jungles would be the very best in terms of skipper, but I was surprised. It was the opposite. When we got to this place, we just...
It blew us away, didn't it?
What?
It blew us away.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was just amazing on that rather wide road that you saw early on, that there were so many skippers there. It was just unbelievable.
And they're building an airport right next door. And we have great concern for whether this will survive that kind of traffic. It's extremely... Yeah, we take signs. Don't destroy our best butterfly place.
Down at the airport.
This is the most personalized place we were at. We were the only guests, 3 of us. So everything, all the cooking, everything was
This
done.
particular time, but I've been there a
Yeah.
couple other times when there was quite a few people. But it's a nice place to go to, and as I say, great for skippers. And Bob, down on the lower lands, lower areas near the Napo River, found quite a few true butterflies. He spent a fair
I should
amount of
mention
time
the elevation too. The upper Napo, the upper lowland is about 700 feet. Back at La Selva and Sacha, the elevation would be 400, 500 feet above sea level. So it gradually goes up and up, or down and down.
There was another reserve nearby called Hatun Sacha, a research station, but because the trails, this was a good example where the trails were so narrow, we put out a few spitwads, but we didn't have any success. Just about a half a mile away.
Oh, where's my point? There's the river, where the lodge is up on a cliff. That's the upper Napo. This is the entrance driveway that was so abundant, with just dripping in skippers, practically. And this is what it looks like alongside the road. This is where we placed tissue. We think that may be
Well,
the tissue right there.
there's one piece there, but we placed it on different types
These are
of
the
leaves.
kinds of, we would put it on this, we would put it on leaves like that, and so on, every so often. And we put more out if we thought there were a lot of butterflies around. And Bob, this is where you spend a great deal of time.
Swallowtail heaven.
Yeah. He's going to do a program in the fall, so you'll see all the true butterflies. Our cabins, right? Neat gardens.
How was the food, Bob?
Good in all places.
Did they serve you
In
good
fact, our meals were worked around our schedule here. Since we're the only ones there,
Oh,
can
no
we
kidding.
eat at 11? Can we eat at 1? No problem. They worked around us beautifully, didn't they?
Yeah, look, there you go.
Here's the dining room. Sitting room.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing.
I told him I thought it was a banana.
Yeah.
It's a banana in front of his nose.
Picking your nose.
chewing his nail.
What? There is Bob and Shirley identifying
On our
a
break.
true butterfly. Oh, no,
No.
it's a moth.
It's a moth.
Yeah. And there's the more debriefing by Bob and myself. And there was the kitchen help and the manager and his wife and
Boy, they were
a
friendly.
little girl.
So much fun.
And here's another,
And then we went out.
this is a vein species, but it's really, I don't put that in the vein species category. It's a special genus of Vedius. And here's another Vedius. And I was going to say that with the economy, what it was last year, it seemed that these two butterflies didn't have trouble making ends meet.
To the next one.
Another false flasher, you can see a similarity, and I can't tell you what the main reason is. Normally, except for a few of the Astralis genus, species in the genus, they have apical spots, which you don't see here. This is a good example. It has some white on the back side of the underside of the forewing, but again, look at the apiculus. This is one of the more common flashers. There's a great deal of study of this species. I don't know why, but there's a lot of
Ticks. Where's the tick? That
no.
black thing.
There's a lot of people that are putting these in different groups. I mean, they're creating new species. It's confusing to me. I don't go into subspecies very much, but it's.
I think it's based on the larvae. Up in Costa Rica, they did a study of the larvae of that species. They found that what was one species turned out to be 20.
That's how it's part of it.
The larvae are hugely different.
This is the frosted flasher for obvious reasons. And this is one of the Hesperiidae species. These are another group of skippers that are hard to identify because you really have to see the ventral in order to see whether it has white or not. In this particular case, we were able to take a picture of it. But they're not easy to identify because so many look like that particular species. Another Panaquina.
By the eye shine, you can tell that I took that picture with a zoom and a flash. It's the only time that you get eye shine. When you do macro with my camera, there is no eye shine, but you can always tell that I took that from. I took an insurance shot, and it was the only shot that I could get. We always take an insurance shot from far away, wherever we stop, because we see the butterfly, we don't want to scare it. We take the picture, just in case.
Oh, that's nice.
I bet you know what the name of this one is.
It's the emerald thing.
Make a guess, Colin.
I have no idea. It's a swallowtail.
Oh no, they're all skippers. No, I'm in skipper.
It's a flasher.
It's a skipper.
It's
What
not
color
called
is
the red flasher.
I don't
Okay.
Green skipper.
know. Green flasher.
There you go.
It's unknown.
I've since identified that bug, but I can't remember what it is.
But it's tolerating a few ants. which is
Yeah.
interesting.
You see that quite a bit with a few ants.
It's green.
Another, we call it blue skippers. I still haven't identified that one. And this is the only mycellus that we found. It's in the section with Hesperiidae, or the fire tips. It doesn't have a red fire tip. Glasper called this a my-tip in his book, which I thought was a clever idea, but I don't know why he didn't call the albellas L-tips and the Gemadias gem tips.
So how big is that one, that orange and black one about?
How big?
Pretty good size.
Okay, pretty good size.
Pretty good size. And
Richard,
I'm sure
Richard
the
Cohen's, yeah. there's-
spitwad not too far away from this.
What happens is, not only does a spitwad attract skippers, but there are a lot of them hanging around in the area. It's not just on the spitwads, it just brings the skippers in. They're like fish.
And if you've been to Mexico, you've undoubtedly seen the falcated skipper. It's called falcated because it has the tip of the wing chopped off. I don't know if you can see that.
It's got a bad
Fairly
head.
common. I don't know what this skipper is here.
It looks like it
Hard to
has
identify
headphones
because I
on.
can't see the ventral side very well. Another blue skipper of a different genus.
If the spitwads are attracting skippers, are they attracting butterflies, the same other butterfly
Yes.
species?
There,
We'll show
we'll
you.
show you a few other creatures that are attracted to the spitwad. This is one of our favorite
Yeah.
rubii.
That is a gorgeous,
And
that's a gorgeous bud.
we all got pictures of this one. And you see here very clearly the spur on the leg there. There are 3 species
Very
in this
scales.
genus. And another, I call them vein skippers, are somewhat hard to identify.
Lots of spurs.
And another vein genus without anything. This is a 80 species, false silver duck.
Those are tails on that, if you have ever time seen that.
Really? Those are tails?
Those have white tails.
This, it was so bright.
And this is a ghost skipper.
These areas are transparent,
Well, semi-transparent.
so you're seeing the tissue
It's
through.
transparent.
Oh,
You all know that you could take this this was a specimen, and you could just rub all the spots off, and you would just have the veining and this clear, cellophane, so to speak.
Or if it was on blue paper, that would all
Hairy
be blue.
scales.
Right. One of the banded skippers.
The bands. Nice rescue.
Another false flasher. And another flat. I don't know why they call them flats, because most spread wings lay their wings flat.
There's
Sounds like a fruit grip.
Does it look like a mango color?
Yeah.
And this is a skipper that we found in 3 different countries, and we don't know what it is. And we're going to have to contact a couple of the lepidopters and see if we can find out. We've got some good pictures of it. I just don't have it in my collection of pictures.
like the subtle.
Now you probably noticed that some of the spitwads are kind of small and dainty. Those are the ones that Shirley put out. I tended to just take a big piece and put a big dump out there on the leaves.
This is another longtail, urbanus. Urbanus is found in North America also. Some tails, white.
And short tail.
The nominate species.
It's a small dog. Another sort of long-tailed genus.
This shows you really good hair-like scales.
This one's taking a picture of Shirley.
It's trying to block the ground.
And on the ground, we found what I think is it's one of the iguanas, and it's the emerald iguana, I think. Just a large amount of green on it.
The patriotic, excuse me.
I wish we saw more of these.
This also comes in yellow instead of the red. That's why I just put down the subspecies name for it. Another genus of rubii, and again I put this in the category of jewel skippers. And a special rubii, I hadn't seen this one before. And our greenback rubii again, showing you the proboscis curled up there.
And then we said farewell reluctantly to Cabañas Arenawi and took off to southeastern Ecuador by van and plane to the Pastaza River, which you see in the picture. These next couple of pictures are taken from the plane. A typical serpentine river and what looks like endless jungle, rainforest. These are the cabins, literally built over, these cabins had more water under them than any of the other cabins that were by a lake. Everything's raised on stilts. This is the main building, the dining room, the sitting room, the bar.
Yeah, a strange creature came out of the woods. And
Leif Erikson was a Norwegian.
oh, he was?
You can't tell those Scandinavians apart. This is a typical Cecropia leaf.
Is this someone you know?
Yeah, that's Richard. And this is the boardwalk that we walked back and forth on. Bob was not with us here. I'm sure we wished he had.
Unfortunately.
Gorgeous. Another rubii from not the Caristoides genus, but the Caristus. That's one I don't know yet, actually.
Now,
And somebody
where'd
can tell.
Colin go? He was looking for the raids. Okay. Just when the raid skipper came out.
Oh.
Right.
These are called raid skippers. I think Glasper came up with that name because of the rays coming out of the base of the wings.
There's even an ant down there taking a sip of salt. Everybody needs salt.
You notice the blue spots on the Kleenex? We ran out at one point in time and bought some and discovered after we opened it up that it was slightly mentholed. And we thought this might be a problem, but it didn't have any effect on attracting the skippers. It's a favorite of mine because most of the time they're very dark and as you know, a lot of skippers do have color on them, but they're often, when they're in the jungle and they've been around a while, they lose the color for some reason. And I have several shots of this that's just almost black, but I was pleasantly surprised when we found this one to realize what nice color it has. You just can't see that often.
Is it that the cells, or I mean the scales wear off and leave?
I think to a certain extent, Richard,
But
that's what
the
happens.
flash and the digital helps some too.
Yes, the lighting has a lot to do with
I
that.
work with the flash, I up it if it's a dark skip. So sometimes things show up that you wouldn't see.
We made this a horizontal shot, even though it was on the vertical screen, just for the ease of identification. Notice the size of those ants.
They're bigger ones.
I have the spray bottle handy in case the dog comes up to it. There are three genuses of what I call eyed skippers because of the black spot. Now this is another one of these false flashes, but I can't figure out why the white is on the ventral there. I understand the shoulder patch, but it may just be some fluke. John Pelham used to tell us here in Washington that every once in a while we find some really weird-looking species, and he'd say that's just 1 in 1,000. They come out that way. Another of the true silver drops, and another fire tip. Again, notice the pickles. And a bola species that's easy to identify because it's called the gold-headed bola. Another scarlet eye. Another blue skipper. And another genus. And another false flash.
Dominant species.
Another Guna species, again, you see they all come with that stripe, and it's very hard to tell them apart, which was specimen shot.
And that is the prize.
That's Shirley's, one of Shirley's favorites.
And that's the last, the 250 species.
Finally, we have observed a few bonuses that the salt wads provide. Quite a few true butterflies, along with a variety of other rainforest inhabitants, like the salt tube. Jungle guides who lead night walks have reported that a whole different set of critters are out there on these spit wads, especially moths. And best of all, at any time of the day or night, the salt wads will help you find your way back to the lodge.
And I used it
Actually, I've used it when I've been out by myself.
Hansel and
You
Gretel.
can retract your
Hansel
steps.
and Gretel.
Yeah.
So if you guys will bear with us just a little bit, we'll go through these. If you want to, I can mention
Yeah,
quickly.
anybody that wants to leave now, you're welcome to go and we'll understand.
So as you can guess, this is a leaf insect, and you have to look because there are blemishes. Even blemishes, like the real thing. Melmar.
Is that more or less a katydid?
I think they're related to
More thoughts there?
Yeah, yeah.
One
Yeah,
snail,
they're orthopteran. That's the gastropod. Look at the blemishes on this. I mean,
it really looks like a leaf.
And this was at night on these.
no,
No.
these
No.
are, these are all daytime things.
You could spend your whole time just taking pictures of bugs.
I
mean,
cannot
it's
tell you,
unbelievable.
it's become a passion with me, that you walk down a jungle trail and you look at every detail, and there's always something new to see. It's, this, you've heard of ant lions?
Yeah.
This is an ant lion nymph. What's in those? Yeah, actually, it's not quite that big, but it's fairly good size. It just, it's like, no, that's,
That's still
yeah, it's the rainforest.
yeah.
Here are the eyes on this one. This is real. This is an orthopteran also related to katydids, crickets. Cockroach.
So are these from any particular place or from all four?
They're from rainforest. They could be from any of the lodges. We went through them in all our slides and just picked a few to share with you. And we've got hundreds.
Wasps, like
Wasps and
spit wad too?
Wasps.
I think so.
bees. Yeah,
Another metal mark,
look at the tail of this metal mark. I never noticed that before.
another cute little
Little
bug
brush.
there.
Flying.
Yeah.
And part of the clearwing family.
This is a bejeweled fly. It's only about 3/8 of an inch. It was hard to take a picture of it.
Looks like it's got a plane wing.
And it stays
I'm
still?
not sure, I'm almost positive it's a fly, so. It's not anything, not like, this is a stick insect. This is the back end, and that's the head. And you'd swear it's just made up of pieces of old, dried up leaf. I mean,
It's amazing.
yeah. From tiny, tiny ants to inch-long black solid. These guys have a bad sting too, so you
Those are ball ants.
Oh, cool, what's that?
Bullet ants?
bullet
Yeah,
ants.
you don't wanna
Yeah,
mess with
they have
those.
other names.
Not all the ants that are 1 inch long.
They're not
are
always
bullet
bullet
ants.
though, yeah.
There are some differences.
This is a balsa boring, balsa borer. A balsa is a kind of tree, so it's a wood boring species, but it's pretty big.
Would you call that a beetle?
No, it's a true bud.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I should have known that by the shape.
It's a weevil.
And this one I want to take home as a pet. It's the sweetest weevil, and notice how antennas.
It's like an ant.
It's just kind of,
That's another
that's
true
a
bud.
true bud, I know that, I should have known that for
What's this one?
This is stink bug.
I'm trying to say stink bug. Yeah.
Just squeeze it to
Focus.
smell.
So,
I've never squeezed one. This is cricket, Katie
find any
Fontaine.
cicadas there?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I have any cicada pictures in this group, but we've got pictures at home. This is a banner, a male, on the spit. So you can see, Richard, true butterflies.
What's that?
I think it's a kind of fly, if anybody can help me better. But it's got, I like its little green head and its two little reddish eyes.
It could
It's
be anything.
What,
I mean, it could be anything. I'm not so sure. It's
oh,
fly. It
it
could
seems
be
like
anything.
it's bigger.
I don't think
It's a
it's a
cicada.
beetle, I think it's a
Not positive.
homoptera.
What do you think?
I think it's in the homoptera.
Yeah,
Homoptera?
yeah.
Now they've lumped
It's not a
in
dip.
the hemipteras, now they're heteropteras.
Oh, gosh. Now, this is a ceiba borer. It's like the reddish one, but this goes to ceiba trees, which are the huge trunked trees. I don't have any pictures of them to show. This is the heliconis. Notice how long and thin the body of true butterflies is compared to the
Most of them,
spears.
yeah.
Yeah. This is the female of the banner, the male banner. This is Bob taking the picture.
See how close we could get to these?
That's what I was gonna ask.
I mean, we're talking inches away
We were
from
just getting inches away from them and taking them.
Neuropierids. There's the one. And we've got the Orthopteran, is that related?
Orthoptera is the
Yeah, yeah,
the cricket.
that's related to crickets and
Crescent.
katydid. This is a meadowlark. This is a satyr.
An eye mark.
Eye mark, yeah.
It's a leaf.
And this is a
A
leaf
leaf.
wing. Go ahead, somebody.
And I have a conius up there. And
Long wing.
a couple of metal marks, 2 and 4 here. And anybody know what that one is there in the lower right-hand corner? It's called a tomato. That was the name first given to it. Did you find it in
That's
Mexico?
nice.
I believe that's right, Dave.
Is that a firefly?
No, it's a cockroach. Another kind.
That's a cockroach.
Yeah.
And,
Who knows what this one is? Anybody? This is seen in, it's in
Clear
southern.
ring.
No.
Malachite.
It's a malachite.
Good.
But that's
all over
a,
Mexico, amethyst metal mark. And this could be Doris.
it's a long wing.
A little tiny one, right? We saw this in Mexico.
Look at the eye. Huh.
Is it?
Another metal mark.
Ooh, what's that?
Beetle. True bug. I mean, no, it's not a beetle. Why did I say that? It's a true bug. Is it a leaf-footed bug or is it a?
Maybe they should understand, those that are getting confused with beetles, why they're true bugs.
I know one.
Half the wing is horny material, I mean, it's a real leather-like material. The other half is membranous. So so that's why they call them hemiptera, half wing. So it's half solid and half membranous. The beetles are solid all the way down. They don't have any membrane when they're their primary wing.
I'm being dumb.
That's a beetle.
It's a weevil.
Yeah, it's a weevil beetle.
Weevil.
And
Grasshopper, chewing
grasshoppers
on the
chew our
remnants.
spitwads up too.
That's the only grasshopper we saw with a beard.
Let's go
Santa
see.
Claus.
Purple wing.
Purple wing.
Notice the spit of this grasshopper is brown. There's something
Actually, a number of the skippers dewdrop, a brown substance, and you can go around, you can tell if a skipper's been on the spit water now, often when you see these brown spots. It's not unlike that.
No marks.
That's a caterpillar.
Don't touch that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's gonna kill you.
No, but
What is
it
it?
can hurt a lot.
We don't know
What is
what
it?
species
And there is
that
one
is.
that can kill you.
How big is it?
About 2 inches long, maybe,
How tall is
An inch high? It's,
an inch high.
it? It's high, okay.
The
yeah.
hairs have a nasty sting.
What?
Yes.
The hairs have a nasty
Yeah.
sting.
Oh, yeah.
Anything, you find any caterpillar that has hair on it, you want to. This is a cane borer moth. And when I first saw this in Veracruz, instead of Veracruz, in the northeast corner of Mexico, I thought it was a butterfly. In fact, I thought it was a skipper. Why? Because it had curved apiculus. And I discovered later it wasn't. They bore in the cane, and it's a day-flying moth.
Oh, this is, no, this is a grasshopper.
These
They're
are
grasshoppers.
stick insects.
Right.
No, they're grasshoppers.
Unfortunately, you see what the male, size of the male there?
Yeah, the male is small.
Something's wrong with this picture.
Well, you don't want to tell the wife what to do, okay?
These are grasshoppers.
And this is my favorite ant picture of all time, because these two species of ants, or maybe three, are all getting along and sharing this particular Kleenex.
I don't know what kind of species the ants those are.
You do?
I
You
don't.
do?
No, we don't
No,
either.
you don't.
We didn't, but one could go down there and just study ants. It's good one.
That's another lifetime, to come and study ants.
Richard, those ants and the longer ones that you showed earlier that tend to bite, some of the tribes on the Amazon, the chief, the children, when they're training to be chief,
Yes?
they have to be bitten by the ants in a
Oh,
ritual
yes.
for inoculation.
Yeah.
And it inoculates them against disease. They have to do it about 20
I didn't know
times.
that. Wow.
They're starting when they're about 12 up to about the age of 18.
We're gonna go
At
next week.
first, visitors think that it's just child abuse, but it's actually just vaccination.
So it seems to work. That is, the Euro-Americans believe it works.
That's it.
Yes, it actually works.
Supposedly, the anthropologists have figured out that that's how they make the chief strong enough to withstand illness.
This is the end. We thank you for coming and being so patient. The story just ran over the 9 o'clock limit. I hope you don't mind.
Well, one thing, I want to just add one thing. When you saw Cabanas, Alanyawi, that place where we said we had such good luck, in 1/2 mile of that road, you would find probably 3 times the number of species that you'd find in the entire state of Washington. And we're talking just a 1/2 mile. It was unbelievable.
Skippers and
It was
troopers.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Just everybody.
And what time did you go?